Hello, everyone, and nice to talk to you today. My name is Lynn Munzer, and I just finished my PhD on female entrepreneurship in the Middle East and North Africa. Before I begin my presentation today, I'd like to tell you a bit about my story and how I came to study this subject. When I was a teenager in a small town in Lebanon, I was literally stuck. When I was 13, you could find me in my bedroom full of those cheesy boy band posters like Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. That shy girl would stay, who had a protective Arab parents, spent a lot of time looking up at her ceiling, wondering why people seemed to think girls were less important than boys. Much of that was pretty typical for any 13-year-old girl at that time in the region. The problem was that 9 years later, I was still staring at the same ceiling, still trying to figure out why girls were considered less important than boys. Only this time, the art has changed. Now I had Metallica posters on. A bit of an improvement. The truth was that my parents, as much as I loved them, not only encouraged my brothers to be ambitious, but also actively supported them. For example, while my oldest brother was sent abroad to study, I was told that a local university is just fine for me. That's when I discovered a wonderful word called agency. So what is agency? It's the power to shape your own life. Agency has been a challenge for everyone in Lebanon. I would say also in the Middle East, because we went through a lot of conflict in the past 30 years, and people were simply on survival mode. But then I realized I desired agency, but my hopes and dreams were being actively discouraged in sometimes small, but they're subtle ways by the society and the regulations and even my own parents. That's when I tried to launch two of my businesses. First, an HR company, and then a marketing agency. I wish I could tell you now that I'm a successful entrepreneur speaking to you from a yacht in the Caribbean, but my businesses didn't take off. That's when I decided to really understand what it takes to become a female entrepreneur in the Arab world. What are the factors that enable some women in our region to create agency for themselves? What are the socioeconomic and psychological factors at play? And how are we conditioned? My story is not unusual. I bet plenty of women out there can connect with it. Oh yeah, that's me in a picture. So, moving forward, let me give you a bit of a context of the situation, the woman's situation in the Arab region. So the MENA is going to take 150 years to close the existing gender gap. The existing barriers to employment and entrepreneurship at every stage of life are limiting equal opportunities, creating a business environment that doesn't support working women. The region is losing $575 billion yearly because of these existing limitations. So, although you'll see here, half of the population are women, yet, and they also have, they pursue more university degrees than men. However, only 20% of the female population are active in the labor force, the lowest worldwide, and with the highest number of global number of female youth unemployment. So, in other words, 3 out of 4 Arab women remain outside the labor force. That means 3 times higher than the world average. Another record that the region broke is the large gap in established business ownership, which is 40%. So, in summary, half of the Middle East population are forced to rely on male family members to survive, leading to inequality in social protection, lack of autonomy over their own decision, and therefore to have a subordinate role in society. we have excluded an entire segment of our population, which is causing significant economic and social problems. Okay, guys, now I'm gonna geek out for a minute, so bear with me. So my research intended to understand the economic and social, financial, and legal situation of women entrepreneurs in the region by studying their drives, the obstacles they face, and how they dealt with them. So I used a mixed method design, which is a mix of qualitative and quantitative subjects. And for a qualitative part, I used a case study, and for a quantitative part, I used the survey scale. For the analysis, I did a joint interpretation. I also used thematic analysis and a top-down approach. In terms of sampling, there was no accurate information available regarding the numbers of female entrepreneurs in the MENA region. So I used mixed sampling strategy and non-probability sampling. It's like random selection. Okay, this is done. That was easy. Let's go for the analysis now. So heads up, the next few slides are you're gonna see a lot of numbers. Let me introduce you to the wonderful woman who participated in my research. So I contacted 500 women entrepreneurs in the Middle East and North Africa, and 129 participated in the study. Participants mostly, 25% of them lived in Lebanon, 15% in UAE, 9% in Jordan, and 9% in Bahrain, which we cannot see here. When looking at the respondent age and marital status, the majority didn't abide by the cultural standard of raising a family first before starting their own business. That's why you see 75% of the participants' age bracket is between 25 and 44 years old. Not shockingly, all the participants are educated, where 56% of them have a university degree. How about on the business side of the analysis? Almost 40% of the ownership were sole ownership. And there's sole ownership with micro organizations, which are 1 to 9 employees. The dominant sector was 77% was the service sector, also not surprisingly. Out of the 129 participants, only 9 companies didn't have female employees. Therefore, similar to previous research, we concluded that the female-owned businesses hire more women. In our case, in the case of my study, 93% of them had at least 2 female employees. So what are the results? Let me just first tell you this. I divided them into 4 categories: cultural and social, training and network, financial, governmental, and legal. So to better understand what women entrepreneurs in the region go through, I will share some of the answers I've received. There were restrictions imposed by my parents as a result of customs and tradition. There's an old saying in Yemen that women do not leave the house, they only go to the grave. That's one of the respondents. As you can see, MENA countries' traditional nature imposes a conventional role on women, where they're expected to perform most, if not all, the household and caregiving responsibilities. This made it hard for the participants to balance their entrepreneurial work with their family responsibilities, where they mentioned tension and guilt while struggling to manage social expectation and have a work-life balance. So we have 62% of the women expressed facing plenty of problems with their families and communities while starting and managing their business, pushing them towards finding a secure job or focusing on their family or even asking them to get married instead. 30% of them mentioned having cultural influence in operating their businesses. Participants often stated that they have to resist the social and cultural norms that discourage them from working or even being ambitious. The societies labeled them and judged them. For example, they called them man repellent. They created skepticism around their women's businesses, which created lack of confidence among these women, which eventually led to, like, it hindered their success and business development. The participants mentioned testosterone-driven practices as a hinder to one's success. However, on the other hand, 38% of the participants mentioned that having the right support and environment to do their business, and 54% of them didn't see any gender or face any gender discrimination. On a side note, let me just say this. Most participants were reluctant to say they had faced immediate problems based on their sex. They considered that women who mentioned gender as an issue were just complaining or not working hard enough. They lessened or rejected the influence of gender in the region on their entrepreneurial journey. I would say that this could be due to two things, either gender blindness or other issues such as risk and business development. They were too busy to function instead of thinking about the existing barriers. Society made it hard for women to network and expand their businesses. So as per one female entrepreneur from Kuwait, she said, I would say that the main difficulty is in entering the male networks. Males have opportunities to socialize with other males in connected, powerful position and talk business, make deals. Females have fewer opportunities to socialize outside the work. So participants perceive networking events as old boys club, where they were uncomfortable, they were worried about their reputation when connecting with men. They also faced difficulty in accessing information. Well, we see 25% of women, for example, in Oman, mentioned lack of business networks, where 23% of women in Bahrain declared lack of knowledge. However, 12% of the participants relied on team support to keep going, while 22% relied on family support and mentor guidance and encouragement. Contrary to other research, 81% of the participants said they have the right skills to manage and run their businesses, and they credited that for their previous experiences. So a female entrepreneur, one of the participants from Egypt, mentioned that a female entrepreneur in the region could quickly get funds from the project. Most of their problems go away. The lack of access to capital and financial support were considered obstacles by most of the women entrepreneurs interviewed. Almost 60% of the participants relied on their personal savings as the primary source or the only source of capital. 52% of the participants mentioned not having access to funds. That choice of self-funding wasn't due to the lack of access to loans, where 40% of them believe that they have access, but only 30% of the participants believe that the banks and financial institutions support women, where the other 70% believe in discrimination within. This is due to the lack of trust in financial institutions, like lack of specialized client servicing in the banks, where women felt uneasy and criticized. The bank exerted indirect discrimination since women were less likely to have collateral, thus needing a male partner. So when women approached the banks with a male partner, they became more appealing and more likely to receive a loan. Another woman in Tunisia mentioned it's horrible to deal with government when you're a female entrepreneur. They have a negative attitude towards women with economic independence. Discrimination law continue to threaten women's financial security, career growth, and work-life balance. In the MENA region, women who only have half of the legal rights of men. That's 50%. Patriarchy has gave man the title of breadwinner and head of the family, Thus, it reinforced the existing discrimination law, which forced women into the service sector. Because it requires low cost, low starting cost, and it doesn't require a loan. More than 60% of women experience gender-based discrimination in their countries. They were pushed to take a male partner since financial and governmental institutes considered women less committed and needed male partners to issue licenses. 41% of the women mentioned governmental business limitation, which is affecting their performance, like difficulty recruiting due to government policies, lack of government support, limited mobility, limited access to information. So one of the participants just said, like, women are not treated as entrepreneurs, but just another woman trying to get busy. They're not taken serious. Still, around 40% of the participants mentioned an existing governmental initiative to support and empower them, making it easier for them to start a business. Some even mentioned minor changes, but noticeable in the development of the mindset, the social mindset towards women earning money for the household. As for growth, 75% of the women were optimistic about their business future growth in the next 3 years, despite the various legal and governmental constraints. So, I designed, let's start with the recommendations finally. I designed this 2x2 matrix to frame the recommendations. They're ranging from individual effort to social effort, and from formal to informal, to like formal, more concrete action. And I came up with the following slide. I want to first start by saying that each country in the region is distinctive. They have similarities, but they all have their unique norms and laws. To grow the number of female entrepreneurs in the region, we need to tackle the 4 stages that intertwine. No one stage can exist without the other. Let's start with capacity building. The first stage is where we improve women's attitudes and practices. Women described feeling pressured and stigmatized when pursuing an entrepreneurial journey. So there should be an intentional change where government institutions should provide enabling environment at home, at the community, and within the business setting as well. There should be an increased awareness through various grassroots initiatives on the importance of women economic inclusion and entrepreneurial endeavors. More training workshops are needed to develop women's personal and business skills needed to start their own company or even think about it. There should be a push towards women leadership development through mentorship and counseling sessions and more gender awareness training. Just everyone here is an agent of change. We're all responsible to empower women around us to achieve their goals. The next level is the capital resources. It's a more formal and it's related to access and control over public and private resources. Funders and policymakers should define, implement, and evaluate women access to funds, training, and information, and address the major existing gender-related barriers. There should be more push towards financial literacy in the region, which is very high. It's the highest in the world. As for the laws and regulation, we need advocacy to play a big role in changing the existing patriarchal laws and policies. These laws are different around the region, as I said, but they have the similar attitudes, which diminishes the value of women's businesses and makes it hard to function or even register a company. Laws that violate and hinder women's right in participating in the workforce should be reformed and replaced with rules that are gender transformative and which recognize and respect the rights of women. Also, literacy and advocacy initiatives around laws, policy, and guidelines will make a big difference. Finally, as we said, the hardest part is changing the collective consciousness, the social behavior and attitude. Media can be significantly important support for women empowerment by highlighting the existing women entrepreneurs in the region and giving a positive impact and view of women. Change in the norm can take time, but requires a complete system and mental transformation. That's why it's the head of the triangle. Community level programs that transform gender norms are needed. They will help increase support, promote grassroots understanding of women empowerment, workforce participation, and entrepreneurial venture. That will help create a supportive, respectful, and inclusive environment. It's our role to unlock doors to successful women and unblock their opportunities. I know one thing, they won't disappoint. Thank you so much. Now I will take your questions.